You're born in medieval England, a time of mud roads, cavities, and short lives. Your parents? Peasants. The past ahead? Already chosen for you, and it's not a good one. You're gonna spend your days working the Lord's fields, shoveling manure, milking goats, and dying by the ripe old age of 40. Fun, right? But one morning when you're about 15, something in you snaps. You're out in the fields at twilight, your back aching again, the same stench of livestock. And it hits you. This can't be your life. You don't know where you'll go, you just know it has to be anywhere but here. The future carved in dirt? Not for you. So before the sun even comes up, you make a break for it. No plan, just a direction. And the hope that anything has to be better than this. You reach the nearest city, a smoky sprawl of cobblestone and noise. Not much better, but hey, it's new. You find work where you can, sweeping alleys, carrying sacks, scrubbing chamber pots. It keeps you alive, but that's about it. Then one day, you see him. A man riding into the square, dragging an outlaw behind his horse. No uniform, no crest, just rope at his saddle and knives on his belt. A bounty hunter. He drops the body on the ground, spits, and holds out his hand. A sack of silver lands in it. That's when it clicks for you. I can do that, you think. No lord, no leash, just a sharp blade, the thrill of the hunt, and more silver than your family would see in a year. It's clear. That's the life you want. You start watching tavern walls for posters, listening for names. Your first bounty? A joke. A petty thief caught stealing from a tailor. You find him drunk, face down in a haystack. Dragging him back is harder than catching him, but you get paid. 1 silver coin. It's worth more than your entire family would see in a month. And just like that, you're hooked. But the next jobs aren't so easy. No more pickpockets passed out in stables. Now it's your job to track men with nothing more than boot prints, bar whispers, and vague descriptions. You've got no maps, no portraits, just rumors and blood trails. And the fights, they're not heroic. Just a lot of grappling, bruises, and the occasional broken rib. One guy even stabs you in the leg with a fork. But you keep at it. Slowly, painfully, you figure out the job. You can quickly tell which leads are lies, which tracks are fresh, and how to fake confidence when a guy twice your size is about to start swinging. In short, you adapt, or you bleed. Eventually, you get enough silver to buy a horse. Not a good one. She bites, bucks, and occasionally scrapes you off on low branches. But she's yours. You'd trade her for something better, but it looks like you were the only fool willing to take her in. So for now, it's the two of you. At least you don't have to walk. Now you're 20. The jobs keep coming, and so do the bruises. You're getting faster, sharper. Not a veteran yet, but not green either. One day you drag a crooked guard through town. He's taken coin to look the other way. Doesn't know your name. Doesn't care. Just spits and calls you a sellsword on a leash. You ignore him, but his words stick. What else are you gonna do? Start over? No chance. You keep moving. The work doesn't wait. Rain? You're still riding. Fever? It'll keep you warm. You're chasing thieves while coughing up blood, arresting murderers while limping from an old arrow wound. The days blur. You catch raiders, deserters, and sometimes you catch a beggar who steals a loaf of bread. But what really sticks with you are the ones you had to kill. The ones who ran, who fought, who left you with no choice. But you can't stop. The pay is good. The work needs to be done. And if you don't do it, someone even worse will. You're 30 now, and you've mastered your craft, with a reputation to show for it. You can track footprints through rain, read lies in a heartbeat, and end a brawl before it even starts. Your reputation grows. Soon, you don't ask for work. It finds you. Then one night, you ride into a village you've never seen before. The innkeeper steps out, wipes his hands, and says your name. Not sir, not you there. Your name. You pause, because no one used to know your name. And that's when it hits you. Your reputation arrived before you did. The good rooms, the hot meals, the respect. They're yours now. Guards don't stop you at the gate anymore. They wave you through. You're not a knight, you don't serve a crown, you don't chase justice, but you've built something. A name, a life. Soon, The jobs stop being small. A baron's steward hires you. High pay, high expectations. And for a while, it's great. But then one bounty, a young stable hand who finally struck back at his lord. You take him in, you take the pay, but something about it doesn't sit right. So you don't take another contract from them.
Nope.
You tell yourself it's because the jobs were beneath you. The years continue to roll by. You're 40 now, a seasoned bounty hunter. You've earned a few gray hairs and more than a few scars. Your name isn't just known, it carries weight. When the stakes are too high to fail, they come to you. You've stopped taking the small jobs. You're the one they call on when failure isn't an option. At least, for now. But the world doesn't stop changing. New bounty hunters are showing up. Young, fast, and hungry. More brutal than you ever were. And one day it hits you. You're not the one they fear anymore. Not really. It's not just that the world is changing. It's you. You're slowing down. Your shoulders ache. Your knees crack when you stand. The blade feels heavier than it used to. But you've carved out a place in this world through grit, blood, and stubbornness. You're not young. You're not fast. But people know your name, and that still counts for something. Younger bounty hunters buy you drinks, ask for tips, call you a legend. You try not to let it go to your head. Still, sometimes in quiet tavern corners you hear it. Still sharp, but not like it used to be. Used to be unstoppable. Now, well, you don't hear the rest. Just enough to know where you stand. You say nothing, but the truth sits with you. You're slower. Cold mornings hit harder. The weight of the bodies you bring in feel heavier than they used to. You're still dangerous, but not untouchable. And some people are starting to notice. You sit by the fire some nights, staring into the flames. You think about the years, the silver, the people you turned in, the ones you dragged, the ones you didn't give a chance. You try not to think about it, but some nights, the silence lingers too long. Then one evening, someone knocks. No words, just a bounty poster, held out in the rain. You take it. Recognize the face immediately. A woman, mid-30s now. 2 years ago, she robbed a noble's carriage. Clean getaway. Big haul. Rumor said the noble raised taxes so high that her whole village starved. Real saint, that one. And her? You saw her 3 days ago at the market, holding a little girl's hand. Same eyes. The bounty's still active. You never realize how high the reward was. Enough to live like a lord. Enough to make you hesitate. You nod once and close the door. You figure it would be easy enough. A woman with a child? She couldn't have gone far. One last job. Enough to leave this life behind for good. By morning, you're on your horse. Joints aching, but determined. This is it. The final hunt. You ask around, drop some coin, get some whispers. Eventually, a lead points you toward a shack at the edge of town. You wait until nightfall. She steps outside with her child nearby, just a glimpse of her through the shadows. Maybe it's the rope in your hand. Maybe it's the look in your eyes. But she sees you, and she knows. Her eyes widen. She runs, clutching the child, sprinting around the side of the house. You follow. Careful steps, heart thudding. Then, your knee locks up. For a second, you nearly lose her. But you grit your teeth, push through. She turns sharply, ducks into an alley, and stops short. A dead end. She spins around, cornered now, holding her child tightly. Both of them stare at you, terrified. And in their eyes, you don't just see fear. You see yourself, what you've become. You freeze. The rope falls out of your hand as you realize you just can't do it. You step aside. She stares at the rope on the ground. Then her eyes flick back to you. And slowly, her face melts from fear to something else. Relief. Understanding. She straightens up, the child still in her arms. After a pause, she starts walking toward the open space, slowly. Once she's by your side, she just whispers, "Thank you," and walks away. You stand there for a while, staring into the dark, unsure if you just made a huge mistake or did the only right thing you've done in years. There's no silver, no glory, but something in your chest feels a little lighter. Eventually you turn around, climb onto your horse, and ride off. A few days later you head into town. You walk into a tavern, drop a coin, and take a seat, hoping ale will quiet your thoughts. Then you stop. There on the wall, a rough sketch of your face, a bounty, your name. Reason? Looking the other way. You stare at it. Hard to say who put it up. The list of people who want you dead is a long one. You study the lines, the price, and you think about everything that led here. The irony sinks in. You on a bounty poster. Then you hear it, the sound of a knife being drawn behind you. You turn. A younger bounty hunter, bigger, stronger. And in that moment, you know it's over. It's either now or a noose. So you reach for your blade, knowing how this ends. But hey, at least you didn't end up a peasant.
Your life starts when you're born into a muddy medieval village. 1 cow, 6 siblings, and 0 prospects. Life is a predictable loop of plague, pig dung, and praying not to starve. No one looks at your chubby cheeks and says, "Ah yes, future royal comedian. You're not special, you're just alive." And for now, that's the only bar to clear. Pretty easy, right? Well, tell that to the 5th son of a drunk farmer with a bad harvest, whose mom named him something majestic like Dungbert. Either way, congratulations. You're anonymous, broke, and blissfully unaware that one day your job will involve fart jokes for kings. You're not trained, you're not destined, you're just unlucky. One day, you'll either mouth off to a nobleman, fall into the castle wine barrel, or get caught doing impressions of the bishop's lisp. And that's it. Your peasant career ends, and your jester career begins with a boot up your butt and a bell on your hat. No formal audition, no talent scouts. Just one badly timed joke, and suddenly, you're property of the court. The kind that has no human rights. But for now, you're just a child. A muddy, lice-infested, blissfully ignorant child. Enjoy it while it lasts, because soon, your job will be to make powerful people laugh while making sure you don't die. Easiest job in the world? We'll let you be the judge of that. Years go by, and no one's sure if you're still alive. Oh, there you are. Congratulations on surviving tuberculosis, smallpox, falling into a ditch, and even the Black Death. You are now one of the lucky 50% who make it to adulthood. Well, technically, you're 16, probably, or 15. No one's kept track since the goat ate the family Bible. But one thing your dad is sure of is you should be taking up the family's tradition of breaking your back plowing. The only problem is that the aptitude test you took last week showed that you'll be a terrible farmer and called you a joker. Your dad's not amused, but you take it literally. And I mean literally. You go to the village square every day doing your bit. Maybe mocking the priest's bald spot. Maybe imitating the baron's constipated warhorse. People laugh. It's your finest work. Then a man with shiny boots and dead eyes points at you and says, "That one." You're dragged into the castle by 2 guards who smell like horse urine and boiled onions. You ask if this is a misunderstanding. One of them laughs. That's the last time your words will be funny on your terms. A steward throws a bundle at your chest. It's a costume, bright, ridiculous, stitched together like scraps of a failed circus. "Put it on," he says. You hesitate. He calls in another guard. You put it on. A few minutes later, You're standing in a great hall looking like a walking tapestry of embarrassment. Nobles stare, someone coughs. You try to speak, but your voice cracks. You bow and fall flat on your face. They roar with laughter. And just like that, you're hired. They call it court jester. But let's be honest, you're a licensed fool. Your job is to slip on metaphorical banana peels for the delight of people who execute serfs for sneezing too loudly. You recite poetry, juggle potatoes, and, if you're bold, mock your betters just enough to make them laugh, but not enough to make them angry.
Nope.
No one tells you where the line is. You learn by crossing it. But there are no do-overs. Your first day ended with applause and bruised ribs. That night, as you lay on a hay-stuffed mattress trying to remember how dignity felt, a scrappy, one-eyed pigeon crash lands through your window, drops a scroll, and immediately begins pecking at your bread crust. You unroll the parchment. The ink smells like sweat and cabbage. Fool's Court, 17 new entries. Archie Armstrong told the bishop he had the face of a blessed pig. The king laughed. He didn't. Zhao the Lame juggled daggers for a Mongol general. Cut my own foot. Got a goat as a reward. Triboulet. Remember, make the king laugh before mocking his mistress, not after. Buttertoes. King gifted me a lapdog and kissed my hand. You all still warming chamber pots? You don't know who Buttertoes is. You don't care. But your stomach twists anyway, because tomorrow they'll expect more, better, riskier. You're no longer a peasant, just a tool in a palace of teeth. And then realization hits you as you wonder if there ever was a previous jester. But since no one says anything, why bother? Months go by and you're getting better. You figure out how to time a fart joke between a noble's goblet sip and the king's wine spit. You master the art of insulting someone's lineage, just ambiguously enough that they can't even retaliate without admitting it hit too close to home. You even get a nickname. Not one you chose, of course. No jesters get to brand themselves. But the court calls you Grinworm. You hate it. It sticks. The king laughs more often when you're in the room. His attendant stops sneering. You're so good that the servants bring you meat now and then, not just broth. You even overhear someone say you're harmless, which is court speak for useful for now. Then one morning, you're summoned to perform privately. Just the king, no crowd, no laughter buffer. He's in a foul mood. You do your act, stumble, babble, mimic a rooster having a stroke, and you pray it lands. He smirks, then laughs, then gives you a ring. For your loyalty, he says. Your hands shake as you take it. Is it a gift? A test? A target? You don't know. You never know. Later that night, while still drowsy from the king giving you wine, your favorite bird, besides the king's chicken thighs, flies in. Fool's Court, 9 new entries. Steinchick. King made me quote Horace to a general mid-beheading. War's weird. Nasrudin told the king the truth in jest. He thanked me, then tripled my taxes. Buttertoes. Feast tonight. King fed me grapes by hand. One was sour. Heads will roll. Zhao the Lame got whipped for laughing at the wrong time. At least it was rhythmic. You don't reply. You just stare at Buttertoes' message. Again. You still don't know who he is. Different kingdom, different time. Who cares? He's everywhere. Everyone quotes him. The king mentioned his name once. Offhand, that was enough. You're not competing, but you are watching closely and quietly. Deep down, you hope he slips. Because if you're going to survive this place, you need to rise fast, or they'll feed you to the dogs. 2 more years go by, and you're now a veteran at staying alive. Your main skill? Really? Same 9-to-5 routine. Juggle, bow, insult someone important, just gently enough to avoid a beheading. Don't mock the queen. Never mock the queen. Don't even talk about the queen. And always bow lower than you think is reasonable. Then, one morning, the war horns blow. You think, finally, something that doesn't involve juggling potatoes in front of inbred aristocrats.
Nope.
You're wrong. They're not sending you to fight. They're sending you to perform for morale, apparently. Nothing says we've totally got this war under control, like a man in bells doing cartwheels while people bleed out in trenches. So you pack your loot, your chicken feather hat, and all your unresolved trauma, and ride off with the king's war caravan like a very colorful hostage. Getting to the battlefield, you realize it's somehow worse than court life. In court, death is quiet. Some poison, a dagger, a hunting accident. Out here, it smells like roasted horse and panic. You're cracking jokes to keep your life. And I mean that literally. Then, the real highlight, you get picked to deliver a humorous message to the enemy commander. Basically, a sarcastic scroll. The idea is, if they laugh, maybe they'll talk peace. If they don't, you're just a diplomatic meat shield. So, across the field you go, smiling like your life depends on it, because it does. You get a chance to deliver your Lord's message. Just one chance. Your life depends on it. So you do your best. Silence. Then finally, one general laughs. The archer next to him doesn't. But you get to crack another joke for another year. You limp back to camp with a black eye, a cracked rib, and a newfound respect for sarcasm-related injuries. You did well, the king says. He's either praising you or doesn't remember your name. That night, while you're trying to fish an arrow splinter out of your leg with a soup spoon, your friend, the scrappy pigeon, crash lands into your campfire and drops a half-burned scroll. Fool's Court, new entries. Zhao the Lame, sent into battle with a banner that said, "Surrender now, idiots." Barely made it back. Triboulet, big mistake at work today. Made fun of both the king and the queen. Almost died. Now I know how I'll die. You'll never guess it. Nasrudin, disguised as a goat for infiltration. The plan worked. Smell never left. Archie Armstrong, war's the only time the noble stops listening to themselves. That's why they send us in first. You don't reply. You just stare at the pigeon. It starts pecking at your soup, and you start to realize the awful truth. There's no way out of this job that doesn't involve a grave. But all's well that ends well. Right? Right? Years go by, and you're in your early 30s. Congratulations. You've outlived your dad and are now a familiar face in the court. Your name is known across the kingdom. After a lifetime of forced laughter, your service is finally paying off. You might even retire with your life. Yes, you've danced with death more times than you can count. But you always landed on your feet. The king loves you. The crowned prince confides in you. For once, things seem safe, but your body says otherwise. The years of abuse, falls, beatings, stress have caught up. Your knees crack, your breath is short. So you stick to clever wordplay and well-timed remarks. Still, they laugh. Still, they applaud. Then comes the feast. The king has guests. Foreign nobles, generals, wives, mistresses, and others you don't recognize. The kind of faces that speak with armies. He wants you to perform. You're tired. The room is a blur of wine and expectation, and you feel it. Something heavy pressing down on your ribs. You make the mistake of speaking from it. You improvise. A joke. Too clever. Too fast. Too honest. About the ambassador's very young wife and the king's habit of inspecting dowries personally. Someone laughs. Loud, sharp, sudden. Then silence. The ambassador isn't an ambassador. He's the crown prince of a powerful ally. He doesn't laugh. The king stares. A chair scrapes the floor. You bow slowly. Too slowly.
Nope.
You're dragged away before dessert. Which is insulting, because it was supposed to be honey cakes, and you love honey cakes. No trial, no last words, no time to explain. By nightfall, you're in the tower, stripped of your motley, your ring, your name. Now, alone in the dungeon, You think of your life when it all began with the bishop's lisp. You know that the court eats boar the next morning. You know a new jester will be brought before the king. A boy who once swept the stables. Younger, cleaner, obviously, more fit. Juggling flaming clubs. After all, you trained him. So you know the king will laugh, the nobles will clap, and no one will mention the last one. Years pass, or maybe they don't. No one writes down the date a jester dies. Not unless it's funny. You didn't die screaming or laughing, just quietly. A rope? A blade? A cup of something that tasted a little off? Old age? No one remembers. Not even the cooks. Your name fades, your jokes are stolen by others. Butter Toes might have gotten a statue, or might have lost his head. You don't care as you get buried in a hole outside the stables. No plaque, no poem, just a bit of stained cloth, buried under leaves, and the memory of someone who danced too close to power and slipped. That's all that's left of Dungbert. He wasn't a legend, he was a joke. And like all good jokes in court, he ended when they stopped laughing. In a castle far away, a bird perches on a window with a letter. Fool's Court, new message. Dungbert has left the chat. Steinchick. Another gone. That joke must have been good.
You're born in medieval Europe, specifically to a noble family. Even more specifically, to a noble family that already has a perfectly good firstborn son who will inherit the land, title, and maybe even live past 40. So what about you? Well, you get a sword. Eventually. But first, you get a name like Algernon or Folk, and a destiny that sounds impressive, but is just a long, slow march toward joint pain. By the time you're 5, everyone's already telling you what you'll be. A knight. And sure, that sounds cool. Until you realize knight doesn't mean hero. It means full-time stabbing professional with lifelong trauma and seasonal armor rot. At age 7, you're officially shipped off to another noble's castle to become a page, which is medieval code for small, unpaid, but enthusiastic servant. You thought nobility meant lounging in silk? Nah. It means polishing someone else's sword while being yelled at in French. You sleep in a cold stone hallway. You eat bread so hard it doubles as a weapon. Your job is to fetch things, hold things, and not die of dysentery. So basically, you are a 3-foot-tall butler with aspirations. But hey, you're on the right path to knighthood. A glorious life of honor, duty, and bleeding from 5 places all at once. So enjoy the page years. They're the part no one writes songs about. For good reason. You're 14 now, which means your bones hurt and your childhood is officially over. You've been promoted to squire, a word that means still a servant, but now with bruises. It's like a medieval promotion to middle management. Same suffering, but more responsibilities. And now you're technically old enough to die in battle. Congratulations! You've graduated from pouring wine to getting stabbed. Lucky you. After all, it's progress. Your reward? What reward? Your job. Everything. After all, you're now the personal assistant to a full-grown knight. You're the knight's butler, blacksmith, nurse, pack mule, and emotional support page, all rolled into one hormonal disaster with a dented helmet. You wake up before sunrise to muck out the stables, lay out your knight's armor, and prep for the day's training. Training, by the way, is just a long series of ways to get hurt by people stronger than you. Sword drills in the mud until your arms shake. Shield training until your knuckles bleed. Archery practice while your stomach growls because lunch was 3 bites of cold barley and a piece of meat so salty it could embalm you. You eat with your hands, drink watered-down ale that may or may not actually contain water, and chew bread that fights back. In the afternoons, you practice mounting and dismounting horses. Yours hates you, obviously. At night, you listen to your knight drone on about chivalry, which apparently includes kicking you awake at 2 a.m. to test your reaction time. You carry gear that weighs more than you do. You sleep in the stables when your knight's had a bad day. Scratch that. You sleep in the stables and smell like everything that sleeps in the stables. You're expected to polish armor till it shines, clean wounds you didn't cause, and be grateful for the opportunity. And if you mess up, public humiliation, or a beating, or both. Once, you mispacked your knight's saddlebag and forgot his ceremonial tabard. He made you wear it for a week straight. You smelled like mold and horse sweat for days, which, in hindsight, was an upgrade from your previous cologne. But you wonder why everyone talks about the glory of knighthood, and no one talks about the 16-year-old squire limping back to the barracks with a black eye and a fractured rib, wondering if honor is supposed to smell like rotting leather and stale piss. But you hold on, because if you just survive long enough, just make it to 21, you might get your own armor, your own squire, your own horse to hate you. Which makes a lot of sense, since it's likely to die in battle. You're 21 now, and somehow still breathing. That alone should qualify you for sainthood, but instead, you get something even more dangerous. Knighthood. It begins with a ceremony. You fast the night before to purify your soul, or just because no one remembered to feed you. You kneel in a cold chapel while the priest mumbles Latin over your aching body. Then the Lord taps your shoulders with a sword, officially turning you from squire to a walking corpse with a title. Now, you're a knight, a man of honor, a symbol of chivalry, and, most importantly, a highly mobile, heavily armed meat shield with a price tag. You get a sword, some land, if you're lucky, and your very own war horse, a terrifying beast named something like Bloodfang or Cabbage. You're expected to uphold the code, protect the weak, serve your lord, and don't die too embarrassingly. The first battle comes fast. You barely sleep the night before. You sit by the fire, arms spread out beside you, chewing hard bread and thinking of all the ways you could die. Your stomach churns. Not with fear. You're used to fear. But from the mutton stew. At dawn, you get dressed, with help from 2 squires. It takes 40 minutes. The breastplate doesn't quite fit. The helmet smells like your old knight's breath. You mount up, say a quick prayer, and join the charge. The battlefield is chaos. Arrows fly, horses scream. The mud is halfway to your knees and twice as warm as it should be. Your sword ham cramps halfway through your second swing. You don't remember most of the fight, just flashes, slamming into someone, falling off your horse, nearly choking on your own visor. You stab a man, but not before taking a spear to the thigh. You don't even know his name. You can only hope he was the enemy as you crawl back behind a pile of corpses, where a half-dead priest blesses you with one hand and throws up with the other. After the battle is over, you're celebrated. Your lord calls you brave. Your squire calls you, still bleeding, sir. You spend the night on the ground, your wound packed with moss, eating dried beans and praying you don't get gangrene before breakfast. This is your life now. Respected, yes, but only because you're willing to die for someone else's politics. You're a knight. You're legendary. You're limping. And you're only just getting started. You're in your 30s now, which for a knight is like hitting retirement age. Except instead of a pension, you get gout and a nagging sense of religious dread. Your sword arm? Stiff. Your knees? A Greek tragedy. Your back? Sounds like a bag of rocks every time you get out of bed. But there's no rest. Not when there's another crusade to join, or rebellion to crush, or some duke's nephew who insulted the wrong chicken and now everyone's at war again. The church says you're fighting for salvation. Your lord says you're fighting for glory. But really, you're just fighting to keep your crumbling manor and avoid being taxed into oblivion. Speaking of your manor, it sucks. The roof leaks. The crops died. You're in debt to the local abbot. Your armor's rusting, and your horse limps worse than you do. But you can't quit. After all, knights don't retire. They just slow down, get stabbed more easily, and die sweating in armor that smells like despair and wet dog. At some point, a bard comes through town and asks you for stories of heroism. You lie through your teeth. He writes a song about your gallantry at the Battle of Sludgefield. You remember it as the day you soiled yourself mid-charge and accidentally impaled a friend. But hey, at least the peasants think you're a legend. For now. 15 miserable years pass, and you're now 45, which is roughly 112 in night years. You wake up every morning stiff, bitter, and missing at least one original body part. Your teeth? Gone. Your hearing? Depends on the wind. Your warhorse? Replaced by a mule named Gerald who walks like he's seen things. Your armor doesn't fit anymore. Because your belly's grown. Your shoulders haven't moved since Lent, and you have to be hoisted onto your saddle with the help of 2 squires and a prayer. You've stopped fighting for glory. Now you fight for cholera-free drinking water. Then one day, during a local skirmish you shouldn't even be a part of, a 19-year-old farm boy with a crossbow shows up and puts a bolt through your side from 30 paces. Clean shot. Doesn't even know your name. You don't die immediately. That'd be too easy. Instead, you get dragged back to your half-rotted manor, where you spend the next week coughing, sweating, and hallucinating about honor while the wound festers. And a monk applies something that smells suspiciously like vinegar and failure. You die in your bed. Not in battle. Not in glory. Just a fever-drenched ex-knight mumbling about horses and God. Your sword? Melted down. Your name? Forgotten. Your manor? Claimed by your cousin. Your mule? Probably better off. They bury you in a churchyard you weren't holy enough for, next to a fence, under a rock. There's no poem, no statue, just a rusted helmet. And a vague story sung by some drunk bard who insists you killed a dragon once. You didn't. But hey, at least you died with honor. Probably. Maybe. After all, no one bothered to check.
You were born in 12th century England, which basically means you've already lost the game of life before you even know how to hold your head up. Your parents? Peasants. Dirt poor. Proud owners of absolutely nothing, except a leaking roof and a few chickens that look just as depressed as you're about to become. From the second you gulp your first breath of smoky village air, your destiny is set in stone. Work until you break. Eat whatever hasn't spoiled yet, and pray you don't catch something that ends in pox. Your daily menu? Bread, if you're lucky, maybe some wilted vegetables. A slice of salted fish on holidays, if the universe is feeling particularly generous. Meat? Please. That's reserved for the people who actually matter. As for your future, it's one long, gray road paved with calloused hands, aching bones, and the faint hope that maybe, just maybe, you'll die slightly less miserable than your parents did. No wealth, no legacy, no song sung about your greatness. Just another faceless soul in a world that wouldn't notice if you vanished tomorrow. And just when you're getting cozy with the idea of eternal, inescapable mediocrity, your father drops a bombshell. He knows a way out, a sliver of a chance, a gamble so desperate that only someone who's seen how bad it gets would dare roll the dice. Because sure, breaking your back in a noble's field sucks, but chasing a dream? That can hurt even worse. At the ripe old age of 8, because nothing screams ready for adult life like being barely tall enough to reach a doorknob, your parents ship you off to the city, not because they don't love you, not because they're tired of feeding you, but because your father, after a lifetime of shoveling manure for nobles who didn't even know his name, heard about a man, a blacksmith, a craftsman so skilled he lived like a king among peasants. And your father, he actually knew him. Not well enough to ask for a favor, but just enough to offer up his own son as tribute. This, right here, is the plan. The one shot. The only thin, flickering chance you'll ever get to claw your way out of a life of mud and misery. So, with nothing but a threadbare sack and a head full of desperate hope, you're sent into the belly of the beast. The city hits you like a fist to the gut. It's filthy, overcrowded, and smells like someone set a barn on fire and then tried to put it out with sewage. You don't even have time to catch your breath before you're shoved through the doors of the blacksmith's forge. the place where your better life is supposed to start. And immediately, you realize this is hell. The forge is a screaming, sweating, hammer-swinging madhouse. The air is thick with smoke, and the heat slams into you like a brick wall. Kids your size sprint past carrying molten metal like it's just another Tuesday. The master blacksmith gives you one look. Thin arms, wide eyes, change your clothes, get to work. No inspiring speech, no welcome to your future. Just a stack of filthy rags and a schedule that would make a grown man cry. Congratulations, you're an apprentice now, which is medieval code for human tool. Your new responsibilities? Haul buckets of water so heavy your knees pop like old wagon wheels. Shovel endless mountains of coal until your spine feels like it's about to snap. Pump the bellows until your arms shake harder than a leaf in a hurricane. And if you screw up, if you so much as drop a hammer or let the fire flicker for a half a second, punishment is immediate. Extra hours, no food, public humiliation. Sometimes all three, if the master's feeling generous. Because out there, waiting and watching, is a line of desperate kids who would kill to take your place. No second chances, no sympathy, just sharpened knives and hungrier eyes. Meanwhile, you're trapped in a daily war against John, Michael, and Robert. John, the schemer, son of a famous weaponsmith, here to outshine his old man. Michael, the prodigy, could outwork 3 apprentices with one hand tied behind his back. Robert, the suck-up, his uncle's on the city council, and he never lets anyone forget it. They're not your friends. They're not your teammates. They're the wolves you'll have to outrun if you want to survive the forge at all. Years crawl by, each one pounding a little more strength and a little more fear into your body. But somehow, you survive. You survive the cracked knees, the split open hands, the hammer blows that glance off your wrist instead of the anvil. You survive John's scheming, Michael's effortless dominance, and Robert's smug reminders that your bloodline couldn't buy a loaf of bread. And finally, after burned fingers and sleepless nights, you stop being just another clumsy pair of hands. You become something more dangerous. You start making real tools, horseshoes that hold firm through a cavalry charge, nails that don't split the timber when driven home, swords sharp enough to whisper death with a single swing. The first time your master picks up one of your finished pieces, turns it over in his hands, and grunts something that isn't total disgust, you realize you're not a burden anymore. You're an asset. You're still an apprentice, still disposable, but now you're good enough to matter. And when you finally reach your graduation day, around the age of 15, you're offered something you spent half your life dreaming about, a future. The master calls you over, his face carved out of stone. No smile, no ceremony, just 2 choices thrown at your feet like a battered coin flip. Option 1, stay, work for him, earn steady wages, live under his roof with a guarantee of food, shelter, and just enough coin to survive the winter. A life of hard labor, sure, but a safe one. Predictable, comfortable, survivable. Option 2, become a journeyman, step into the wild, travel from city to city, town to town, begging for work in places where a stranger is just another problem to ignore or rob. No guarantees, no protection, no second chances. If you make it, you carve your own legend. If you fail, you die cold, hungry, and invisible. You hesitate. Of course you hesitate. After all, security sounds a lot sweeter when you know exactly how hard the world outside could punch. But then your master tosses in one final shard of hope. If you leave and survive, there might be a place for you here again someday. Might. Not will. Not promise. Just a sliver of possibility, barely enough to catch the light. And because you're young and stubborn and so damn sick of taking orders, you take the gamble. You choose the unknown. You become a journeyman. And you step out into the world for the first time, alone. You had a job, you turned it down. Security, food, a roof over your head, all tossed aside because you wanted more. Was it a mistake? Maybe, maybe not. You're about to find out. The The first few days on your own are a special kind of misery. No forge, no tools, no real plan. Just a satchel slung over your shoulder and a growing pit of hunger gnawing at your ribs. You walk for days, town to town, village to village, asking for work at every forge you find. Most times, you don't even get a no. You get ignored, like you're not even there. And when you're not invisible, you're worse, suspicious. A strange face means trouble, means stealing, means something the blacksmiths don't have time to deal with. By the second week, you're sharpening knives for street vendors just to earn a scrap of bread. By the third, you're sleeping in barns and stables when the farmers aren't looking. By the fourth, you're genuinely considering selling your hammer for a bowl of stew. This is the glamorous life you fought for. This is freedom. And it's slowly killing you. But just when the hunger gets loud enough to drown out your pride, you catch a break. A farmer's hoe snaps in half during planting season. You repair it with a borrowed hammer and half a fire pit, forging the cracked iron back together with hands that haven't held proper tools in weeks. The farmer's impressed. He doesn't pay you much, barely enough to buy a loaf of bread. But he tells his neighbor, who tells another. And suddenly, the long chain of silence breaks. First a hoe, then a plow, then horseshoes for a traveling merchant. Each job earns you a few more coins, a few more scraps of food, a few more nights sleeping under a roof instead of under the stars. It's not much. It's survival, but it's yours. Every calloused finger, every aching step, every forged piece of iron, it all belongs to you now. You are no one's apprentice. You are a blacksmith, a real one, not in title, not on paper, but in the only way that matters. You can survive on your own work. Coin by coin, you start saving. Work by work, you start building a name. You invest in better tools, better materials, better skills. You don't just fix broken things anymore. You make them. New axes, new horseshoes, new knives so sharp they could split a hair. You travel to bigger towns, learning advanced techniques from any blacksmith willing to trade knowledge for an extra pair of hands. Every mile you walk, every blister you earn, every deal you shake, you are becoming something more, something dangerous. By the time you return to the city, you're not the scared, scrawny kid who stumbled out of the forge years ago. You're a weapon, and you're finally ready to be noticed. The city doesn't recognize you at first. You've changed. Not just older, not just stronger, honed, tempered, like a blade that's been hammered until the impurities burned away. You take on jobs, bigger ones, more important ones, and word spreads faster than wildfire. You're not just the blacksmith's apprentice anymore. You're the blacksmith. The guy who reforged a knight's sword on the road when every other smith said it was hopeless. The guy who can shoe a war horse so well it runs like it's floating on air. Nobles start to take notice, mercenaries, even army generals. At first, it's everything you dreamed about. Coin pours in like rain, the kind of coin that buys respect, that buys comfort. You rent a real workshop, you sleep on a real bed, you eat real food, meat, whenever you damn well feel like it. You stop surviving, you start living. And then reality slams its foot on your throat. Because when you're that good, you stop being a craftsman. You become a resource. And resources get claimed. You hear whispers before you see it. Certain nobles aren't just impressed with your work. They're interested in owning it, owning you. One day, a letter arrives. An offer, polite on the surface, threatening underneath. A powerful lord wants you as his personal blacksmith. No negotiations, no counteroffers. You belong to him now. And if you don't like it, there are always ways to convince a man to become more cooperative. Kidnapping, threats, slavery, take your pick. You disappear before the sun even sets. Forge cold, tools abandoned. For a month, you live like a rat, moving from barn to barn, alley to alley, praying you don't see a bannered guard riding through the streets. If they find you, it's over. You won't be a master anymore. You'll be a prisoner with a hammer. But fate, for once, flinches first. The civil war boiling in the kingdom finally erupts. The lords who wanted you dead or caged have bigger things to worry about, like not getting their heads chopped off. You survive by sheer luck, by sheer stubbornness. You survive. And when the dust settles, you rise. By 22, you're no longer some desperate kid hauling buckets for scraps. You're a master blacksmith, not just by title, but by reputation. Lords compete for your services. Knights travel across kingdoms to commission your blades. And this time, you choose who you work for. You choose where you plant your forge. You build your own workshop, your own house, your own name. You are everything your father dreamed you could become, and far more than he ever dared to imagine. But success isn't the paradise you pictured, not even close. The orders never stop. Weapons for armies, armor for battalions, tools for whole regions. The forge roars from dawn to dusk, the fire's never dying, the anvil never cooling. You hire apprentices of your own, kids who look at you the way you once looked at your master. No matter how many hands you bring in, no matter how many hours you pour into the work, it's never enough. It's never enough. Because every sword you forge turns into 10 more orders. Every set of armor you finish leads to 3 more contracts. Every favor you grant turns into another leash around your neck. The forge becomes your world again, a prison built not by poverty, but by success. And slowly, quietly, without anyone noticing, it starts to kill you. You don't notice it at first, not the way your hands tremble when you grip the hammer, not the way your back locks up halfway through a shift, not the way you cough a little harder every time the forge smoke curls around your face. You're too busy, too important. There are weapons to forge, deals to honor, names to make. You ignore the pain, you ignore the cracks, because that's what survivors do. Until one day, you can't. The coughing doesn't stop anymore. Your joints scream with every movement. You wake up feeling like your own body is trying to bury itself. You see a doctor, a real one, not the old woman who treats sword wounds with moonshine and prayers. He looks at you, listens to your lungs, checks the calluses on your hands, the paleness of your skin, and then he tells you the truth. Lead poisoning. A lifetime spent inhaling toxic fumes, handling raw materials, working 15-hour days in a forge without rest. There's no cure, no treatment, no miracle. You're dying, and there's nothing anyone can do about it. Most blacksmiths don't live past 50. You're 47. You built a forge that fueled armies. You raised apprentices who now run their own shops. You helped find a guild that protects the very kids who used to sleep in the soot, dreaming of something better. You changed the city. You changed the world. And no one outside those walls will ever know your name. No songs, no statues, no legends whispered around campfires. Just the quiet legacy of iron and smoke and broken hands. You accept it. Because the truth is, you never swung a hammer for glory. You did it to survive. You did it to escape. You did it to prove, if only to yourself, that you could be more than the world expected. And you were. The day you die, the forge is still burning. Apprentices still hammering steel into swords. Journeymen still shaping iron into armor. Customers still lined up, clutching coin, desperate for the work your hands once performed. The world doesn't stop. It barely even slows down. But somewhere, deep in the roar of fire and steel, your story lives on. Not in songs, not in stories, but in every blade that refuses to break, in every nail that holds a house together, in every apprentice who dares to believe that maybe, just maybe, they can be more. You were never just a blacksmith. You were the fire that shaped an empire. And even as your body fades into ash and dust, the forge never dies.